The silent signal. Dr. Sarah Chen stood motionless in the darkened control room of the SETI Institute, her eyes fixed on the signature scrolling across her holographic display. After 15 years of scanning the cosmos for signs of intelligent life, they had received something unprecedented, a message that defied all known communication protocols. The signal wasn't just data, it was desperation given form. Mathematical sequences interwoven with what could only be described as emotional resonance patterns, a cry for help encoded in the universal language of mathematics, but with an underlying complexity that spoke of unimaginable technological advancement. Director Walsh needs to see this immediately, she whispered, her fingers already composing the urgent message that would wake her superior at 3 a.m. Within hours, the Institute's main conference room was packed with Earth's leading scientists and government officials. The message's translation filled the main screen. The Meridiani, an ancient civilization from the Andromeda galaxy, faced imminent extinction. Their star system was being consumed by what they called the void, a phenomenon that defied their advanced understanding of physics. They've already contacted 17 other spacefaring civilizations. Director Walsh explained, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display. All of them refused to help. Most cited the prime directive of non-interference. Non-interference. Sarah scoffed. They're asking for help, not colonization. The room erupted in heated debate. Earth had only achieved faster-than-light travel capability 5 years ago. Their first colonial ships had barely reached Alpha Centauri. How could they possibly help a civilization millions of light years away? Admiral Helena Rodriguez, commander of Earth's nascent Space Force, stepped forward. The Meridiani included specifications for their quantum communication technology. If we can replicate it, we could establish real-time communication despite the distance. But should we? Professor Zhang interrupted. These advanced civilizations must have their reasons for refusing. Perhaps interfering would cause greater catastrophe. Sarah stood up, her voice cutting through the murmurs. Let me show you something else in their message. She pulled up a new sequence. This isn't just mathematical data. They embedded emotional patterns in the quantum signatures. I've never seen anything like it. The room fell silent as she played the decoded emotional resonance. Everyone present felt it. A profound sense of fear, hope, and something else. Something uniquely familiar to the human experience. The refusal to accept defeat in the face of overwhelming odds. Admiral Rodriguez nodded slowly. They're not just asking for technical help. They're asking if anyone in this vast universe still cares enough to try. Director Walsh looked around the room. The UN Security Council needs our recommendation within the hour. Do we respond? Sarah thought about humanity's history, how often they had faced extinction-level threats, how many times civilizations had risen and fallen. But through it all, there had always been those who reached out to help, even when success seemed impossible. We're the youngest spacefaring civilization to receive their message, she said. Maybe that's exactly why we should respond. We haven't forgotten what it means to fight against impossible odds. We haven't become so advanced that we've lost our humanity. Admiral Rodriguez stepped forward. The Artemis I is our most advanced ship. We can have it ready in 3 months. I'll volunteer to command the mission myself. This could change everything, Professor Zhang warned. Our place in the galactic community, our relationships with other civilizations. Yes, Sarah agreed. It will show them exactly who we are and what humanity stands for. The vote was nearly unanimous. Earth would answer the call that 17 other civilizations had ignored. As Sarah composed humanity's response, she thought about the long journey ahead. They had no guarantee of success, no certainty that they could even help, but they would try. The message she sent was simple. We hear you. We're coming. Hold on. Within hours, the Meridiani replied. Their response contained no mathematical formulas, no technical specifications, just pure emotional resonance, gratitude, relief, and something that transcended language barriers. the renewed will to survive. As news of the mission spread across Earth, volunteers flooded in from every nation. Scientists, engineers, and explorers, all willing to risk everything to save a civilization they had never met. It was humanity at its finest, brave, compassionate, and unwilling to stand idle while others suffered. The mission would be called Operation Prometheus, bringing hope to those in darkness. As Sarah watched the preparations begin, she realized that this moment would define humanity's place in the cosmic community, not through military might or technological advancement, but through the simple act of choosing to help when no one else would. Little did they know, this decision would set in motion events that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of what it truly meant to be an advanced civilization. The real question wasn't whether humanity could save the Meridiani. It was whether the galaxy was ready for humanity's unique approach to impossible challenges. Against all odds, the Prometheus hung in Earth's orbit like a silver arrow aimed at the stars. Its quantum-enhanced hull gleamed in the sunlight, housing humanity's most advanced technology and their boldest dreams. But today, those dreams faced their first major challenge. Admiral Rodriguez stood on the bridge, her jaw clenched as she read the latest transmission. The Arcturians, one of the oldest spacefaring civilizations, had just issued a formal warning. Any attempt to assist the Meridiani would be considered a violation of galactic protocol. "They're trying to intimidate us," Commander James Foster said, his dark eyes scanning the message. "But they're not actually threatening military action." "No," Rodriguez agreed. "They're betting their reputation alone will make us back down." Typical of a civilization that's forgotten what it means to take risks. The ship's quantum communications array lit up again. This time, it was Dr. Chen from Earth. Her hologram appeared in the center of the bridge, her expression tense. "Admiral, we've decoded more data from the Meridiani. The void, it's not just consuming their star system. It's learning, adapting. Every attempt they've made to study, it has only made it stronger." Rodriguez shared a look with her crew. No wonder the other civilizations had refused to help. They weren't just afraid of breaking protocol. They were afraid of facing something they couldn't understand. "What's the status of the quantum drive?" Rodriguez asked her chief engineer, Dr. Yuki Tanaka. Yuki's hands danced over her holographic controls. "The Meridiani specifications were brilliant. We've achieved 300% better efficiency than our original designs." But she hesitated. "There's something else. The quantum signatures suggest this technology wasn't originally theirs. They received it from another civilization, long ago." The implications hung heavy in the air. The Meridiani were sharing technology that had been shared with them, an act that might explain some of the hostility they'd encountered. A new alert flashed across the main screen. 3 ships had just emerged from quantum space, sleek, crystalline vessels that seemed to bend light around them. The Selenites, another ancient race, had arrived. "They're hailing us," Foster reported. The hologram that appeared showed a beam of pure crystalline energy, its form shifting like aurora borealis. "Humans." It spoke, its voice resonating directly in their minds. "Your courage is admirable, but your intervention is unwise. The void is beyond your comprehension. We have studied it for millennia." Rodriguez stepped forward. "Then why haven't you solved it? Why watch an entire civilization die? Some threats cannot be defeated, only contained. The Meridiani's fate, while tragic, prevents a greater catastrophe. Stand down, humans. You are too young to understand the complexities of galactic balance." The Admiral's response was immediate. "We're too young. Maybe that's exactly why we'll succeed where you failed. We haven't learned to accept defeat as inevitable." The Selenite's form flickered. "Your species still believes in impossible victories. It is admirable, but dangerous. We cannot permit." "You can't permit," Rodriguez interrupted. "We're not asking for permission. The Meridiani called for help, and we answered. That's all there is to it." After the Selenite's hologram faded, the bridge was silent. Finally, Foster spoke. "They'll try to stop us." "Let them try," Rodriguez replied. "Humanity didn't get where we are by backing down from bullies, whether they were other tribes, other nations, or now other species." Dr. Tanaka's console suddenly lit up with new data. "Admiral, I'm detecting quantum fluctuations. The Meridiani just sent us something new. It's the complete technical specifications of their defense systems. They're giving us everything they have." Rodriguez smiled. "They trust us. Despite everything they've been through, despite being abandoned by everyone else, they're willing to trust us completely." She turned to her crew. "That trust is worth more than any advanced technology. It's worth fighting for." The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. The crew worked tirelessly, integrating the new Meridiani data, running simulations, and preparing for what would be humanity's first major test in galactic politics. More warnings came, each more strongly worded than the last. The Arcturians threatened economic sanctions. The Selenites warned of temporal consequences. A dozen other species added their voices to the chorus of disapproval. But Earth didn't waver. When the UN Security Council convened an emergency session to discuss the threats, the vote was again unanimous. The mission would continue. As the Prometheus prepared for its first quantum jump, Rodriguez addressed her crew. "Every great achievement in human history started with someone doing what everyone else thought was impossible. Today we carry that legacy forward. Today, we show the galaxy that humanity doesn't abandon those in need, no matter the odds." The quantum drive hummed to life, its energy cascading through the ship like liquid lightning. The coordinates were set for the Andromeda Galaxy, a journey that would have taken millions of years with conventional travel. Just before they initiated the jump, a final message came from Earth. It was Dr. Chen. "The other civilizations are wrong about us being too young. We're exactly old enough to remember what matters most, that the greatest achievements come not from playing it safe, but from daring to help others when no one else will." As the Prometheus leaked into quantum space, its crew carried with them humanity's greatest strengths: compassion, determination, and the unshakable belief that impossible odds were just challenges waiting to be overcome. The real journey was just beginning, and with it, humanity's chance to prove that true civilization wasn't measured by age or technology, but by the courage to stand up for what was right. The crossing. Quantum space was not meant for human eyes. As the Prometheus carved its path through reality's underlayer, the viewing screens showed impossible colors and geometries that made the crew's minds ache. But Commander Foster had noticed something else, something that shouldn't be there: patterns. "Admiral," he called out, his voice tight with concern. "These quantum fluctuations, they're not random." Admiral Rodriguez joined him at his station, studying the swirling chaos outside. After 20 days of quantum travel, the crew had grown accustomed to the strange vista, but this was different. The pattern seemed almost deliberate. Dr. Tanaka's voice came over the intercom from engineering. "Admiral, the quantum drive is picking up unusual resonances. It's like something out there is watching us." Before Rodriguez could respond, every screen on the bridge flashed with a new warning. The quantum field was destabilizing, but not from any natural cause. Something was reaching for them through the quantum foam. "Emergency protocols," Rodriguez commanded. "Prepare for." The ship lurched violently, throwing the crew against their harnesses. The quantum field collapsed, dumping the Prometheus back into normal space. But they weren't alone. A massive vessel hung before them, its surface a web of living metal and dark energy. It dwarfed the Prometheus, making Earth's most advanced ship look like a toy in comparison. But what caught everyone's attention was its design. It was Meridiani architecture, but impossibly ancient. "We're being hailed," Foster reported, his fingers dancing over the controls. "The signal, it's using Meridiani protocols, but they're millions of years old." The hologram that appeared on the bridge showed a being that looked like a Meridiani, but wrong somehow. Its form was twisted, as if reality itself couldn't quite contain it. When it spoke, its voice resonated with ages of accumulated knowledge. "Children of Earth," it said, "you venture where you do not understand. The void is not your enemy to fight. It is our salvation." Rodriguez stepped forward. "Identify yourself." "We are what the Meridiani chose not to become." When the choice was presented, transcendence through the void or remaining bound to physical form, our ancestors chose evolution. The others, those you now try to save, chose stagnation. The truth began to dawn on the crew. The void wasn't a natural phenomenon at all. It was a weapon or a tool created by this splinter faction of the Meridiani who had chosen a different path eons ago. "You're killing your own people," Rodriguez said, her voice hard with anger. "We are offering them transcendence, as we were once offered. The other civilizations understand this. It is why they do not interfere. The cycle must continue." Dr. Tanaka's voice cut through the tension. "Admiral, I'm analyzing their quantum signature. The void. It's not just consuming matter and energy. It's converting it into something else, something that exists outside normal space-time." The ancient Meridiani's form flickered. "Your species is young, but perhaps you can understand. Physical existence is a larval stage. The void offers metamorphosis. Those who resist simply prolong their own suffering." Rodriguez looked at the being with a mixture of pity and defiance. "And who gave you the right to make that choice for others? Evolution without consent isn't evolution, it's extinction. You cannot stop us," the being stated. "The process has already begun. The void grows stronger with each conversion. Soon it will reach critical mass, and all Meridiani will transcend, willing or not." But Rodriguez noticed something in the sensor readings. Every time the being spoke, there were quantum fluctuations in their drive core. Dr. Tanaka had noticed it too. "Admiral," she whispered through a private channel, "their technology, it's based on the same quantum principles as our drive. But they never expected anyone to develop it independently. They don't know about the modifications we made." A plan began to form in Rodriguez's mind. The Prometheus might not be able to match the ancient vessel's power, but they had something the transcendent Meridiani didn't. Perspective. Sometimes the best way to see a problem wasn't from a position of advanced evolution, but from the ground up. "You're right about one thing," Rodriguez told the being. "We are young. We're young enough to remember that true advancement comes from choice, not force. Young enough to still feel outrage at the strong dominating the weak, and young enough to still believe in impossible victories." She nodded to Foster, who had already understood her plan. As she kept the being talking, the crew began making subtle modifications to their quantum drive. If they were right, they could use the drive's resonance to disrupt the void's fundamental frequency. "Your philosophy is admirable," the being said, "but irrelevant. You cannot comprehend the scale-off." The being's hologram stuttered as the Prometheus's quantum drive spun up to full power, but not for travel. Instead, they turned it into a quantum resonance cannon, broadcasting a counter-frequency to the void's own quantum signature. The ancient vessel's surface rippled as the frequencies clashed. They had found its weakness, the arrogance of assumed superiority. The transcendent Meridiani had been so focused on ascending beyond physical form, they'd forgotten the power of simple physical laws. "All hands, brace for quantum shock," Rodriguez commanded as she gave the order to push their drive beyond its designed limits. They had one shot at this, one chance to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, but their willingness to stand up for what was right, no matter the odds. The Prometheus's drive core blazed with impossible energy as they launched their counterstrike against beings who had millions of years of evolution on their side. But sometimes, being less evolved had its advantages. Sometimes, the simplest solution was the one an overthought mind would never see. As the quantum shock wave expanded from their ship, Rodriguez thought about all the civilizations that had refused to help the Meridiani. They had seen the problem from above, from their position of advanced knowledge and technology. But humanity, in their beautiful ignorance, had seen it from below. And sometimes that made all the difference. Breaking point. The quantum shockwave from the Prometheus rippled through space, a visible distortion in reality that spread like rings in a cosmic pond. The ancient Meridiani vessel shuddered, its living metal surface writhing as the carefully tuned frequencies disrupted its quantum cohesion. But victory was far from assured. Warning lights flashed across the Prometheus's bridge as their quantum drive strained against its limits. They were fighting beings who had transcended physical form millions of years ago, and they were doing it with technology they barely understood. Drive core temperature critical, Dr. Tanaka reported from engineering, her voice steady despite the chaos. We can't maintain this output for more than a few minutes. Admiral Rodriguez watched as their attack created spreading cracks in the ancient vessel's quantum field. We don't need a few minutes. We just need enough time to prove a point. The transcended Meridiani's hologram flickered violently, its form becoming increasingly unstable. You cannot comprehend what you are interfering with. The ascension must continue. It is the natural order. Natural order? Rodriguez challenged. There's nothing natural about forcing evolution. That's not advancement. It's tyranny dressed up as progress. Commander Foster's console erupted in new alerts. Admiral, we're detecting massive quantum fluctuations. They're trying to adapt, to shift their frequency to match our attack. The ancient vessel began to pulse with dark energy, its surface reorganizing itself to counter the Prometheus's assault. The transcended Meridiani had millions of years of experience manipulating quantum fields. They wouldn't be defeated easily. But Dr. Tanaka had seen something in their response. Admiral, look at their adaptation pattern. They're thinking in terms of complex solutions, trying to outmaneuver us with advanced quantum mechanics. But what if we went simpler? Rodriguez finished, understanding immediately. They've evolved so far beyond basic physics that they've forgotten its power. Commander Foster, reconfigure our attack. Strip it down to basic wave mechanics. The transcended Meridiani's voice boomed through the ship, tinged with something new, confusion. Your primitive understanding, can it? Primitive. Rodriguez smiled. Sometimes the oldest tools are the best ones. Now, Dr. Tanaka. The Prometheus's quantum drive changed its output, switching from complex quantum frequencies to a simple resonating wave. Like an opera singer shattering a glass with just the right note, they struck at the fundamental frequency of the void itself. The effect was immediate and devastating. The ancient vessel's quantum field began to collapse, its carefully constructed layers of evolution unable to counter such a basic attack. They had expected humanity to try to match their complexity, to fight them on their level. Instead, the humans had gone back to basics. Their field is destabilizing, Foster reported. The void, it's starting to break down. Through the failing hologram, the transcended Meridiani spoke again, but now their voice held a note of revelation. You could have matched our complexity. Your quantum drive is capable of it. Why choose such a simple solution? Because, Rodriguez answered, sometimes the best way forward isn't up into complexity, but back to fundamentals. You've been trying to force the universe to evolve on your terms. We're just reminding it of its own rules. The ancient vessel's surface began to crack, lines of normal space showing through its quantum-warped exterior. But as it deteriorated, emergency protocols kicked in, and it prepared to flee into quantum space. They're trying to escape, Foster warned. Rodriguez shook her head. Let them go. We've made our point, and we've got more important things to do. As the ancient vessel vanished into quantum space, its departure created a cascade effect. Without its controlling influence, the void began to dissipate, its complex quantum structure unraveling in the face of basic wave mechanics. Admiral, Dr. Tanaka called out, I'm detecting a massive quantum surge from the direction of the Meridiani home system. The void. It's not just stopping. It's completely breaking down. The bridge crew watched their sensors as the artificial quantum construct that had threatened an entire civilization began to dissolve. The transcended Meridiani had built their weapon on layers of evolutionary complexity, never expecting anyone to think to attack its basic foundation. But the victory came at a cost. The Prometheus's quantum drive was severely strained, its core nearly burnt out from the intense energy output. They had won the battle, but reaching the Meridiani home system to help with the aftermath would be a challenge. Status report. Rodriguez commanded, already thinking about their next move. Drive core is operating at 40% capacity, Tanaka reported. We can still travel, but we'll need to be careful with our quantum jumps. The good news is, I think we can repair most of the damage once we're stationary. Foster looked up from his console. Admiral, we're receiving transmissions from the Meridiani home system. They're celebrating. The void is gone. Their cities, their people. Everything it consumed is being restored as its quantum effect unravels. Rodriguez allowed herself a small smile. Send a message to Earth. Tell them Phase 1 is complete. The threat is neutralized. She paused, looking at her crew, humans who had just gone up against millions of years of evolution and won through simple ingenuity. And tell them we're going to need every bit of human creativity for what comes next. Because the hard part was just beginning. They had saved the Meridiani from extinction, but now they had to help them rebuild. More than that, they had to help them find a new way forward, one that balanced advancement with choice, evolution with wisdom. As the Prometheus limped toward the Meridiani home system, Rodriguez thought about the message they had sent to the galaxy. Humanity had proved that being young didn't mean being weak, that being less advanced didn't mean being less capable. Sometimes, it just meant being able to see solutions that others had evolved past. Legacy of Hope. The Meridiani homeworld sparkled like a jewel in space, its cities gleaming under twin suns. 3 months had passed since the destruction of the void, and the planet was alive with activity. The Prometheus hung in orbit, its quantum drive finally repaired, while smaller shuttles ferried supplies and personnel between the surface and the ship. Admiral Rodriguez stood in the Great Hall of Communion, the restored heart of Meridiani civilization. Around her, representatives from 24 spacefaring races had gathered, including many who had initially refused to help. The galactic community could no longer ignore what humanity had accomplished. The humans didn't just save us from extinction. First Speaker Lyra of the Meridiani addressed the assembly, her crystalline form catching the light. They showed us a new way forward. Their victory wasn't just about defeating the void. It was about proving that true advancement comes from choice, not force. The Arcturian representative shifted uncomfortably. We acknowledged that our hesitation was perhaps overcautious. But surely you understand our position. The transcended Meridiani represented millions of years of evolution. And that was exactly your mistake. Dr. Tanaka spoke up from beside Rodriguez. You saw millions of years of evolution as automatically superior to our thousands. You forgot that sometimes the best solutions come from fresh eyes. Commander Foster added, evolution isn't just about becoming more complex. Sometimes it's about remembering what works and building on those foundations. The selenite representative's crystalline form flickered with what might have been embarrassment. We have spent the past months studying your method of defeating the void, the elegance of your solution. We had become so focused on quantum complexity that we missed the fundamental harmonics that could disrupt it. Rodriguez looked around the hall, at faces both alien and familiar. That's why the galaxy needs all of us, not just the oldest or most advanced civilizations, but every perspective. The transcendent Meridiani thought they had evolved beyond physical form, but in doing so, they lost touch with the basic principles that govern our universe. A new figure approached the center of the hall, one of the transcendent Meridiani who had survived the void's collapse. Unlike before, its form was now stable, having chosen to return to a more physical existence. We were wrong, it said simply. In our quest for advancement, We forgot what true evolution means. It is not about forcing change, but about growing together, learning from each other. It turned to Rodriguez. Your species reminded us of this. The impact of humanity's actions had rippled far beyond saving one civilization. They had challenged the galaxy's assumptions about advancement and evolution. The older races had been forced to confront their own arrogance, while younger civilizations were emboldened to share their perspectives. The Meridiani archives have been restored, First Speaker Lyra announced. But we're not just going to preserve our past. We're going to build a new future, one where advancement is measured not by age or technology, but by the wisdom to know when to act, when to listen, and when to learn from others. The assembly erupted in discussion, with representatives from various civilizations offering resources, knowledge, and support. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had been the catalyst. Later, on the Prometheus's observation deck, Rodriguez stood with her crew, watching the sunset over the Meridiani homeworld. "Did you ever think," Foster asked, "when we first received that distress signal, that we'd end up changing the entire galaxy's perspective?" Rodriguez smiled. "We didn't set out to change the galaxy. We just couldn't ignore someone asking for help. Sometimes the most important changes come from simply doing what's right." Dr. Tanaka joined them, holding a data crystal containing new quantum theories developed through collaboration between human and Meridiani scientists. The Arcturians are already talking about establishing an interspecies council, one where every civilization gets an equal voice, regardless of their age or technological advancement. "And the transcended Meridiani?" Foster asked. "Some have chosen to return to physical form," Rodriguez answered. "Others maintain their transcended state, but have committed to respecting the choices of others. They're learning that true evolution means growing together, not forcing others to follow your path." The Prometheus would soon return to Earth, carrying with it not just new technology and knowledge, but something far more valuable: a new understanding of humanity's place in the galaxy. They had proved that being young didn't mean being inferior, that sometimes the simplest solutions were the most powerful, and that true civilization was measured not by its age or advancement, but by its willingness to help others. As the ship prepared for its journey home, messages poured in from across the galaxy. Some were apologies from civilizations that had refused to help. Others were requests for collaboration and exchange of knowledge. But the most meaningful came from the Meridiani themselves, a simple thank you, encoded in the same quantum frequencies that had carried their original distress signal. "You know," Rodriguez told her crew as they made their final preparations, "the older races thought we were too young to understand the complexities of the galaxy. But maybe being young isn't about what you don't know. It's about being willing to try things that others think are impossible." The Prometheus's quantum drive hummed to life, ready to carry them home. They had arrived in the Andromeda galaxy as unknowns, representatives of a young species that dared to help when others wouldn't. They were returning as proof that sometimes the greatest wisdom comes not from age or advancement, but from simply remembering what it means to be human. As Earth's most advanced ship disappeared into quantum space, it left behind more than a saved civilization. It left a legacy of hope. Hope that in a galaxy of ancient races and advanced beings, there was still room for the simple courage to do what's right. And perhaps that was the most advanced concept of all.